Firstly, when did you first hear that the most clinically vulnerable people will be allowed outside for the first time in 10 weeks?
Just a couple of days ago, like everybody else. And my concern is that these changes are coming too soon. We have an R number that is at 1 or close to 1 in parts of the country. And the government still hasn't reduced the alert level from 4 to 3. Now, these were meant to be things that should have happened before these steps were being taken. So my worry is that we are going too fast. And we can't allow people to be lulled into a false sense of security that kind of suggests that everything's okay. People need to remain very, very vigilant because infection rates, in my view, are still too high in parts of England.
Do you think it's right that you only found out a couple of days ago you are the mayor of Greater Manchester? It doesn't give you much time to prepare, and the same for your colleagues around the country?
No, we would have preferred more notice, but that's been true throughout this. I understand the government has to take its decisions in the way that it does, but more notice is always going to be helpful for people in my position, and I would ask them to do that. But also I've got to ask what more could be done now to put us in a better position. There's a couple of things that I think need to happen. Number one, we've got to empower the public with more information, trust in their own judgment to make the right decisions, particularly for those people who've been in the shielded population. You know, they need to decide how quickly to change their routine. So let's have the R number published on a regional basis, starting now, so that people can judge the level of risk in different parts of the country, because it's not the same all over England. The second thing I would suggest to the government is to allow the scientists to front up the daily briefing for the next couple of weeks at least. Back in 2009, I made the mistake as a politician of making too many public statements during swine flu. And the truth is, politician statements are always going to be more contested and more controversial. I think the scientists need to come centre stage now, and it's got to be purely about the facts, the information that people need about the spread of the virus. That is crucial as we go into this more risky phase of the pandemic.
And on public statements, I mean, I saw you tweeted yesterday, so we're at a dangerous moment, but don't worry, everyone. The Premier League is back soon and will be free on telly. Nothing at all contradictory about today's daily briefing. What did you mean by that tweet?
Well, we had the Deputy Chief Medical Officer saying that it remains a very dangerous moment. And at the same time, the Culture Secretary standing next to him saying, oh, football's returning, racing's returning. And to me, that appeared to be a contradictory message that was being sent out from 10 Downing Street. I don't think we should be making announcements about football at the daily briefing. As I said a moment ago, for me, it should be purely about the science, the facts. Where are we up to with this virus across England? We had the Foreign Secretary on the MAR programme this morning talking about the localised information he has in different parts of the country. Well, why is that not being made public? Let people see what is happening on the ground in their communities so that they can make their own judgments. Personally, I don't think these daily briefings are working anymore. They look like a PR opportunity for ministers, when in fact what they need to be is highly factual, giving people the evidence of where this virus is up to. And I would say it, because I made this mistake back in 2009, so I'm not kind of saying that, you know, preaching to them or point scoring. I made that mistake and then decided to allow the then Chief Medical Officer only to front the briefings. And I would say the same to this current government. I think it would be the best way to restore public trust, which has been damaged in recent days.
The Foreign Secretary also spoke to Sophie Ridge this morning. I mean, so are you telling us that you believe that the government is giving us mixed messages? And if that is the case, do you believe that the government is putting people's lives at risk as we try to get out of this pandemic?
I certainly think they're providing mixed messages at the moment. As I said yesterday, there was a very different message coming from the experts as opposed to the politician, and that's a problem. And I think the government needs to work hard now to get the public health messaging back to where it needs to be, with more authority. But are people's lives being
put at risk because of that mixed messaging?
Well, I'm not going to say that they are just because of that what happened yesterday, but they could be if we don't get this sorted out and we don't restore public trust in the strength of the public health messaging. Now, it's taken a knock in recent days, and it's why I'm saying, you know, let's have the experts front and centre now for a couple of weeks so that we can have, you know, just factual information about where the virus is up to. I think what hasn't served us well in the course of this is ministers kind of coming to the briefing and promising to have this many tests by this many dates, or making announcements about football as we saw yesterday. That should take place in a different arena. At the briefing, give people the facts.
And Mr Burnham, where do you stand on schools reopening from tomorrow? A lot of questions about the test, trace and isolate programme. Many are questioning whether it's fully operational.
Well, it isn't. I mean, I can only speak for Greater Manchester, and I can tell you that it isn't fully operational in Greater Manchester. It's getting there, but it will be a couple of weeks until it's fully functional. And that, I guess, is what I'm saying to you today. I would have waited to make any changes to have that system fully in place. And certainly with regard to schools, I wouldn't have really allowed schools to come back at all until that test and trace system was fully functional. So the position that I would take now is allow flexibility to schools and councils in different areas to judge the local circumstances with regard to spread of the virus and the number of new cases. And that's what's happening in Greater Manchester. Of course, we want to see students back in schools. Of course we do. But it's got to be done safely. And what you're seeing here is schools coming back over the next 2 or 3 weeks using their judgment. And I think that's the right way to go.
And do you think the government is being led by the silence when it makes these decisions for schools, for example, and also other easing of restrictions?
Well, scientists have been saying over the weekend that they don't feel comfortable with the speed of the changes that are being made. And one, I think, described them as political decisions. So it's clear that the science isn't leading some of what is now happening. We've heard throughout the government saying it's been led by the science, but that, I think, has changed over the last few days. And it's why I say let the public hear the science, because even if they've got more potential freedom, still empower them with information so that they can choose how much change to make in their lives and how much they should sort of stick to the cautious side of this. That's why, honestly, I think the best thing that could happen now would be for the experts to front those daily briefings, and they should be absolutely empowered to speak freely and fearlessly to the public, not worrying about a politician cutting them off, as we saw last week. Let them speak to the nation, and then let the public decide how they want to deal with the situation that they face in their own community.